Dear ICCS members and friends, good afternoon and welcome to this webinar session organized in partnership with ICCS members, Algebra and Veluzzo International Partners. My name is Carola Capone and I'm the Marketing Executive at the ICCS. Today's conversation will be focusing on how Brexit is going to impact the ASEAN market. And now, without any further ado, I shall leave the word to our president, President Alberto Martinelli, who will start today's session with his welcome speech. Thank you, Alberto.
Thank you, dear ICCS members and friends, His Excellency Ambassador of Italy, Singapore, Raffaele Langella. On behalf of the board, welcome to today's webinar and event. An interesting and intriguing one, something different from usual. Personally, I appreciate a lot this triage, where thanks to some of ICCS distinguished members, we are able to go beyond the usual dimension Singapore, Italy. We involve something much broader. Some puzzling thoughts that I hope our speakers are going to address. London has been the dream destination, dream work destination for my generation since the 90s. Is it still going to be the case going forward after Brexit? The current Italian generation seems to prefer Asia and Singapore especially. His Excellency Ambassador Raffaele Langella has been pointing out that in fact the Italian community was one of the fastest growing in Singapore pre-COVID. And last but not least, real estate. The real estate investment of Italians in London and the UK are massive. Likewise, Britain's investments in Italy. That's why one part of Tuscany is actually called Chianti-shire those days. This is going to continue. I think that Alessandro Belluzzo has been writing several articles on this topic, on these matters in the recent past. So now, to help to put things in perspective, allow me, being a banker, we like figures. Bankers like figures by definition because they reassure us when we do and comment our mistakes. To put things in perspective, the UK export to Singapore counts for roughly 6.4 billion euro. Singapore, on the other hand, export to the UK shy 3 billion euro, so fairly balanced. On the other hand, Italy export to Singapore over 2 billion euro of goods, mainly machineries, automotive, cosmetics, furniture, and of course food and beverage. On the other hand, Singapore export to Italy, a tiny 400 billion euro, something a little bit unbalanced. When it comes to the UK and Italy, just to put things in place and in perspective, well, Italy exports to the UK over 20 billion euro of goods, mainly machinery, chemicals, pharmaceutical, fashion, furniture, and once again, food and beverage. And well, the UK export to Italy, once again, electrical equipments, automotive. It shouldn't surprise. I think this is a legacy of Mrs. Thatcher, considering how many Japanese brand cars are assembled in the UK today. So I don't want to tedious and confuse you further on these numbers, but these were just to set a little bit the scene. And by the way, I would like to conclude before handing over to His Excellency, saying that in the recent past, the UK have been claiming that they aim to become a kind of Singapore of Europe, meaning Singapore is the port of entry for ASEAN. ASEAN country, the ASEAN market, which accounts for 655 million population of consumers. So it looks like the UK wants to become the port of entry, especially for the Asian partners, for Europe, a market which is today 455 million, plus the UK nationals, 67 million population. Overall, if you add the maths, this accounts for 15% of the total global population. So size, relevant sizes. So thank you very much for your thoughts, and I hand over to His Excellency Ambassador of Italy in Singapore, Raffaele Langella. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Alberto. Thanks a lot to the chamber for inviting me to this very interesting meeting. Thanks to Belluzzo and Algebra who have organized everything, and I mean, will give a contribution in terms of content. Incidentally, I was participating in a joint conference arranged by the UK embassy together with our embassy, Italian embassy, on COP26. You know that the UK and Italy will co-chair COP26 this year. We lost the preparatory meetings in Milan, and the final meeting will be in Glasgow, as you know. And I mean, it's supposed to be quite an important achievement in the implementation of the Paris Agreement. Well, it's very difficult to try and assess what kind of consequences Brexit will have on this area from an Italian point of view. Of course, you all know that Singapore and Singaporean companies in particular, they always thought of London as the I will say their base to attack the European market. Well, take for instance Temasek. I mean, the European headquarter of Temasek is in London, and from London they used to follow all the different countries of the European Union, including Italy, and things apparently for them at least used to work. Nowadays, maybe Singaporean companies will be obliged to double their efforts to create parallel structures in Europe, because for several reasons, London will not be at the very heart of the continent, at the very heart of the European Union market. So this is quite an interesting consequence of Brexit. I mean, this kind of reshuffling of the market, and the need for Singaporean investors to find alternative solutions to the traditional ones. Of course, this will also create a stronger, fiercer competition between the UK and the European Union as a whole. I'm not, of course, referring also only to Italy and the European market. It will be a sort of a clash of two different systems. We are witnessing now how the pandemic has been managed in the UK, the results the UK government has been able to reap. And unfortunately, the problems that we are experiencing in the European Union, it's a clash of different cultural approach. I mean, European Union is proving to be much more risk adverse if compared to the UK, and this is true for the management of the pandemic, but it's also true for several other activities, including economic and financial activities that could be of some interest for prospective Singaporean investors. So it will be very interesting for us to know how this phenomenon will develop. We only hope that in the implementation phase of the Brexit agreement, there won't be any further friction or clash between London and Brussels. You know that Brussels has requested to start a procedure against London because of the partial implementation of some of the provisions contained into the agreements. I mean, we can only hope that this will not be the kickstart of a lengthy, if you want, low-intensity legal war between the UK and the European Union. It's a shared interest of both sides to find a common ground and to set a level playing field in which to compete without any sort of deviation. Well, I think it's all as far as I'm concerned, and I will give the floor back to Alberto. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your words of wisdom. Carola, thank you.
Thank you, His Excellency the Ambassador Angela, and thank you, Alberto. I would like now just to leave the word to Fabio Garibotti, which is the managing partner in Algebra, who will give also his welcome speech. Thank you, Fabio.
Thank you, Carola. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for to be here, to be part of this event today is very much appreciated. Also, I would like to thank the Chamber for the great support they gave us, and to all panelists of today for the great contribution. Of course, I would like to give a special thank you to Alessandro Belluzzo. Starting from last year, we start to collaborate with the Belluzzo Associati in Singapore, in UK, and in Italy. And for us, it is a very strategic partnership. Algebra is a small firm. We are based only in Singapore, even though at this point we are quite well established within our community, Italian community in Singapore. We need somehow find a way to survive, to grow, and find a way to expand our network. So sometime last year, Alessandro came up with this idea to try to team up. For us, we jumped in on this idea. We was very glad that he considered us for this partnership. Belluzzo is a very well-known firm in Italy and UK with a great history built through many years of professional activity. So for us, Belluzzo is an ideal partner to team up with. So I hope, I believe that we are starting a long-lasting partnership, profitable for all parties. So for this, I would like to thank again Alessandro. Thank you everybody, and buon lavoro. I pass to now to Andrea.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Or you can hear me, but you cannot see me. Okay, here I am. Sorry, I'm using a new computer. I'm not very well familiar with. All right, I will not thank anyone because I think we say thank you enough. I will go straight introducing the panelists. We are very lucky to have a very good lineup, and we are able to get a few people very expert on ASEAN and Brexit. So we have Alessandro Belluzzo, who is managing partner of Belluzzo and Associati based in London. Then we have Damire Sterica, who is the CEO of Moroso. Moroso is a leading Italian design furniture company, and it's an interesting case because they have a sizable business in UK and a sizable business in ASEAN. So I think their operation will be affected by Brexit, and Damir will be able to share us some of his concerns and ideas about what's going to happen. Then we have Gabriele Giovannini, who is a fellow at Torino Human Affairs Institute, and is one of the few Italian experts on ASEAN, and he has a lot of experience working in Indonesia, Singapore, Myanmar, and other countries in the region. Then we have Raffaele Quarto, who's a trade policy expert of the European Commission, who's now based in Ghana, but was based in Jakarta until a few months ago. So he can give us a very fresh perspective on the relationship between ASEAN and the European Community regarding to Brexit. So now, with much further ado, I will leave the floor to the speakers for a 1-minute presentation of themselves, and then we will go into the debate. So Alessandro, do you want to start?
Yes, good morning from London, and of course, good afternoon to you in Singapore. And thank you very much for the panelists to be here, to the ambassador, first of all, and to the Chamber for the support. Our presence today is a very important remarks because we're strengthening our position in Singapore through Algebra, and we aim to be the family business for family businesses, international present with different offices, and this is Singapore is a very important hub to us. And we're going to have a new as well opening soon on the other side of the pond, meaning in the US. So our strategy as Belluzzo International Partners is growing, and following the COVID and the Brexit scenario, we think that we are taking the right path to be present in different locations of the world. So I'm not sure if I can start my presentation or I need to pass to the other to present themselves. Andrea, I didn't understand this. Sorry. Can you repeat?
I think you can start. Okay.
So talking from my perspective, then I will share some slides I've prepared for today presentation, meaning that I hope you can all see the slides. What we are going to talk today about is, of course, the combination of the budget, which is
I think Alessandro is experiencing a problem with his Wi-Fi, with his connection.
signed.
Alessandro.
Yeah. Alessandro?
Yes.
I think your connection went down. We couldn't hear you for a couple of seconds.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, could you please reshare the screen?
I'm sharing the screen. Is it working or not?
No, it's not working. So you need to reshare it.
Sorry, it wasn't expected. Now?
It's, wait a second, yes. Okay, now it's working.
I keep it like this. So I was saying that I'm presenting the budget. I'm presenting what happened with Brexit on the 24th of December, the 20th, and of course, the effect of COVID-19. So it's quite funny to think about that in 3 years, many things are happening and they are lined up on today's presentation. So to start with some numbers, which are very important to us, given the job we do. Of course, I like to state what is the UK economy about following the Chancellor explanation. The UK economy shrunk by 10% in 2020. This is mainly due for COVID, of course. There's economy forecast to rebound in 2021 of 4%. And they think that we can go back to pre-COVID levels by middle of 2022. There's an unfortunate scenario of job losses, of course, unemployment, and there's a huge borrowing by the UK of a record of 355 billion, so the largest after the wartime. And this is what we are dealing with at the moment in the UK. So what they have decided to do with the budget was, first of all, to try to deal with, again, the impact of COVID and go for incentives and extend incentives to help the economy. Of course, the most famous Polo, basically the Cassa Integrazione that we have in Italy, to try to help and support the economy, not only for the employers, but also for the self-employed, and as well as for the people that they don't have a working at the moment in place with the universal credit and working tax credits, and to increase the minimum wage to £8.91 an hour is an important help to the economy. And why is the Chancellor decided to do so? Because the idea was to push for the economy to grow and to help the economy to shift then from COVID to Brexit, to help the economy to strive and to restart again. And what happened also, it was quite unexpected because of also what Alberto Martinelli said, that the UK was set to become a sort of a Singaporean economy in the European scenario, which I never believed to be the case. Because of COVID, this has been also even more untrue. COVID pushed the Chancellor to higher the taxation and to freeze the benefit for people to keep the economy alive. And this is the first what we've seen on the taxation of individuals, nothing basically has changed. But by the simple fact of freezing the allowances, of course, the help of the allowances on tax is an increase of taxation. And all the allowances that is going to be frozen up to 26. So the same will happen for inheritance tax thresholds. The only effect of trying to help the economy on the taxation for individuals has been on the stamp duty holiday, talking about the housing market, as was briefly touched by Alberto Martinelli. This has been an important help to the economy and is here to last. And also no tax charge on property sales. So what they're trying to do is to try to push the people to buy property and to make, again, the attractiveness of the real estate market in the UK, especially outside London, because what happened with the COVID economy scenario, lots of people moved out from London. They decided either to go to the countryside or even change countries. And as we said before, Italy is one of the countries that has benefited the most of this change, especially amongst the Italians community. A lot of people move back to Italy thanks to the incentives that we have in Italy to repatriate people. A lot of people, they decide to move. How long will last this for? We don't know. But certainly this is a new scenario in the economy. On businesses side, this was the most of the surprises. Instead of reducing taxes, he decided to increase taxes on the corporation tax, especially an increase of up to 25% when profits are above £250,000. This is a huge increase. We're talking about 30% increase. And there is a rate of 19% that remains for the small businesses profits less than 50,000. So we go back into was 10 years ago, the system. And this is something that amongst practitioners, we were expecting actually, because we wanted to see someone to take the lead and say, we need the support to the economy. How do you support the economy? Increasing taxes, because this is the only way. And then you try to push consumers to purchase more and more. So what they've done, they have increased the deductibility of investment costs to a huge amount. So it's like the Tremonti super amortization tax. There was incentive in Italy, 130% incentive on this, very important. They lower the VAT on hospitality firms, and they give business rates tax holidays to help people and businesses to survive and shift from the COVID issues to the new rebound of the economy. And of course, they try to help as well the businesses to get a new visa schemes, to get startups moving back into the UK. Because funny enough, what is happening with Brexit, because of the new visa systems, a lot of people are deferred their decision whether to come to the UK or not from the Europe any longer. So they're trying to incentivize people again back to the UK. So what we're talking about is the budget, is COVID, but nothing has been mentioned in the budget about Brexit. Why so? Because we think that we wanted to deal with COVID first and then see the reaction on Brexit side. At the moment, the budget say nothing about Brexit, but something we're spotting on the budget about Brexit is, of course, the only thing that we can say is similar to Singapore is the 8 English freeports solutions, very similar to Singapore situation. And on the financial side, the only thing that we are seeing is the share trading SPAC incentives, because everything else on the financial supporting sector, passporting overall, has been postponed. And most of all, we are not sure if they're going to get an agreement with Europe. So what about the other measures that we think that are going to be implemented? We don't know yet, because the OBR noted that because of Brexit, it can be a long loss of 4% of compared to remaining in the EU. So this is something that needs to be addressed by the Chancellor. At the moment, what we all know is about what Brexit has created to individuals and businesses. So to shorten this, I prepared a very small and brief checklist. So what happened with Brexit for the UK? What is the Brexit scenario after the deal that was struck on 24th of December 2020? Everything has changed. Most of all, for individuals living in the UK and able to apply for the so-called settled and pre-settled status, nothing has changed, but everything else is changing. From working, you need a permit. To study, you need a visa, and there's no longer the Erasmus program. To travel, you need to be sure how long you want to spend in the UK, because you have limitation of 90 days among 6 months, 90 days for the next 6 months. So maximum 6 months for every 90 days every 6 months. Investing in the UK will cost more because of the tax implications, and going out to Europe made some unfortunate increase of tax, including the so-called EVA, our foreign IMU, taxation of real estate property, increase a lot because of the tax base increase that was due to Brexit. So everything has changed considerably to the individuals and as well to corporate entities, because starting from contracts, everything should have been revised. Incoterms especially, custom procedures. It's not true there are no costs and there are no tariffs. There are a lot of costs, a lot of tariffs in the UK due to Brexit. And also some of the VAT implication, because we are going out of Europe, we have a new import and export system to apply. On the product, there will be a new conformity patent called UKCA from 2022. For the workers, we need visas, and taxation because of the effect of getting out of EU, and so the directives are no longer applicable. We have the so-called treaties. The treaties are important because they stabilize and they make sure there is a clear taxation between the two countries, but certainly the cost is more. We're talking about 10% on dividends instead of basically zero between UK and Italy, because of the directive that was implemented before. So the effect that we see in Europe because of Brexit is huge. So I wonder, because of Brexit, the effect that we see in Singapore, because just to say that Singapore and the UK, they struck a deal straight away after, in December, basically, straight away before Brexit happened. So I wanted to understand from the other panelists what kind of effect we are seeing, because to finish, the first effect that we are seeing because of COVID and because of Brexit was a huge reduction of imports of some goods from Italy to the UK. We're talking about a drop of 40%. So I'll leave the floor to the others to stimulate the debate.
Thanks, Alessandro. And I think it's the right person to take the baton from you is Gabriele, who can share with us a bit about the treaty between Singapore and UK. And Gabriele, can you maybe say a few words about what you do, and then start talking about the agreement between Singapore and UK.
Thank you very much, Andrea. And let me start with thanking ICCS. And I'm actually very glad to meet virtually President Martinelli, finally. And also it's a pleasure to meet again virtually His Excellency's Ambassador Langella. And thank you, Algebra and Belluzzo, of course, for inviting me. And it's actually very intriguing and interesting issue, right? And this triangle, this triage is actually fascinating, and it's something we all need to focus a bit more on. So forgive me, I will try to be very brief and to provide an overview of the FTA between UK and Singapore, of course. But forgive me if I spend a few words on what I do and what our think tank institute is. So Torino World Affairs Institute, where I am a research fellow within the Asia Prospects research area, is really focused on East Asia, China and Southeast Asia mainly, but Asia as a wide. And since 2018, actually, we have an MOU with ICCS, so I'm very glad to to be involved here. To publish business-oriented reports. We do 2 publications every quarter. So these are on, mainly focused on opportunities for Italian companies, but actually also with a political perspective, let's say. This is what we do. So we work a lot on issues such as RCEP, for instance, but we didn't, this is I'm saying because we missed so far to really analyze, what Brexit means and what can be the impact of Brexit on our activities, economic activities and trade with Southeast Asia and Singapore in particular. So it's a very, very big challenge. You invited me here to try to make some sense of it. So, okay, very briefly on the relationship between UK and Singapore. We all know that since the beginning of this year, there is an FTA into force. The FTA actually is very easy to describe because it's really identical. It's really the same as the previous FTA with the EU. So it's a kind of copy of that treaty. But it's very important to underline the Asia-Pacific focus of UK and Southeast Asia specifically. Actually, the one with Singapore has been the second reached after the one with Japan, but the first in ASEAN. So it's politically it's very significant, and this shows how UK government really put Southeast Asia and Asia Pacific as a whole as priority #1 in its trade policy. So this is something we all have to have very clear. And but at the same time, I would say that observing how UK is dealing with Singapore and the other ASEAN countries is very important also to have an idea of what UK will do or could do with in other regions. So looking at the pattern, if so. And so, of course, with Singapore, UK has a very historic relationship, and so I don't want to waste time on this. But this actually, at the end of my speech, I will provide some insight not only from the trade perspective, but also from the geopolitical and diplomatic dimension. So, as said, the FTA is the same. Actually, has been added a quota for 350 tons of Singapore foods allowed into the UK annually. So this is something that Singapore obtained, a negotiator obtained. And there is the perspective for working more on the investment side. And we all have to remember that UK for Singapore is the second partner for services, the third for goods. So this is, of course, has been mentioned already by President Martinelli in the introduction, but is useful to re-underline. And at the same time, UK is the source of half of the EU investment into Singapore, right? So average roughly 7-8 billion in total. So the relationship is very strong. We all know that EDB, for instance, as the regional headquarter for Europe in London, and is there to stay. So we didn't hear any rumor or EDB, considering to move or relocate anywhere else so far. As far as I know, at least. I don't know, maybe other panelists have some insight into this, but probably not. And the FTA, of course, is very relevant for specific sectors such as pharma. I think pharma probably gonna be the one with most benefits, and electronics as well. So this is something we all know. Then there has been the news last week of the single largest investment from into a special impact fund from Temasek. We all probably seen the investment into Leapfrog, 500 million euro, or probably seen dollars anyway. So this has been a huge investment from Temasek into Leapfrog, a UK-based impact fund. And so I think investments and probably this kind of financial cooperation is the angle from which to look at the most in the coming months and years. So the other thing I wanted to underline, I already mentioned before, is the diplomatic and geopolitical perspective, because from the colonial past, UK has a, let's say, special relationship with Singapore. So, and there is the five-power agreement, defense agreement between the UK and Singapore and other regional players such as Australia and New Zealand, which is relevant to remember. Also, we focus more on trade and business, but it's also important to remember this. And there is a UK defense personnel based in Singapore. There is speculation about building up a permanent military base in Singapore or in Brunei either. So this is something we all probably need to look at as much as possible in the coming months, because of course defense and geopolitics will go hand in hand with trade and with investments. So. Okay, so going back to trade, has been pretty comfortable for UK to secure the prosecution of the FTA with Singapore firstly, and then with Vietnam as well, I think the day after, with which EU, as we all know, had already signed the FTA. So now the big question mark actually is to understand if this will be doable or also with other single ASEAN countries, bilaterally, or more ambitiously with the EU as a bloc, but this is not within my speech. So, but of course, this is the question everyone is asking, and if UK will be able to negotiate the dialogue partner status with ASEAN and all these issues. So I think for the overview, this is basically the most important things to take into account. But of course, I'd be glad to follow up in the discussion. So
thanks, Gabriele. So I think Raffaele can get again the baton from you and share with us a bit how at the European level Brexit can affect the relationship with ASEAN.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm glad to see some old friends in the screen, and I'm happy to contribute to this dialogue in Singapore.
Just tell us for a minute what you do and what you do in Jakarta.
Yeah, as you mentioned, now I moved continent. I spend most of my working life in Asia, but now I am in Africa. Try to bring my knowledge and my experience with the regional integration in Asia in Africa. As you know, there is a huge project of a continental FTA here in the African continent, and the experience that I have with Asia could of course be very relevant. But I still continue to look at Asian affairs, of course, and this idea of how Brexit can have an impact on the trade policy in Asia of Europe. I think it was a very good, stimulating topic. I will briefly make 3 points in a very Singaporean style. And the first one of this point is that one of the important consequences of Brexit, actually one of the raison d'etre of Brexit, at least in the eyes of the Brexiteers in London, is that now the UK has taken back the policy, in particular the trade policy. Because since they joined the EU in 1973, the trade policy was done on behalf of the UK, and the other member state was set up by the European Commission. So now, since they decided to leave the Union, they had to actually rethink and reinvent their own trade policy. And this has particular relevance for a continent like Asia, where there are a lot of historical linkages and also commercial and economic relation. Of course, the first agreement, actually, I would say the mother of all agreement for the UK has been the one negotiated and concluded on the 24th of December last year with the EU, because without this agreement, of course, the credibility of the UK negotiator vis-a-vis third countries would be much different, and the leverage that they may have would have been much lower. So after that, of course, but even before concluding this agreement, the UK developed a network of agreement with countries, and it was mentioned in particular with countries where the EU already has an agreement in order to guarantee the continuity of trade, so that there will be no disruption on the 1st of January of trade with countries where there was an agreement with the EU. Of course, Singapore, Vietnam have been mentioned, but also we don't forget Korea and also Japan, which are very important partners. And those agreements, in particular the one with Korea, was very successful for European companies. And losing this privileged access to the Korean market would have been a big loss also for the UK. So the second point is that the UK, in order to make it quickly and easy, follow basically the EU trade policy, and actually, as was said, copy the agreement that were already in place with few, of course, distinction, but essentially the same agreement in order to be ready on the 1st of January. That does not mean that the UK does not have a slightly, at least, different approach. For example, of course, the agricultural sector is not so important and so sensitive like it is with the rest of the EU. So that's why they had additional quota for Singapore and also in other countries. So they could offer more on this side. The geographical indication is another area where probably, apart from Scotch whiskey, they are less offensive than our French and Italian and Spanish GI producer. But of course, they have other interests, in particular in the service area, where in particular financial services, but also legal services and other business-related services are much more, where UK companies are much more competitive, are areas where the UK will definitely try to negotiate more concession from their partners. In the particular ASEAN region, apart from these two agreements, the UK is also engaging with Indonesia. When I was still in Jakarta, I had a lot of exchanges with my UK colleagues that are trying to follow also the step of the EU in negotiating an agreement with Indonesia. And of course, the ultimate idea is probably to reach an agreement with the ASEAN itself, although now politically with the situation in Myanmar, I see a little bit more complex and difficult even to start to negotiate with the ASEAN as a group. So, however, in the UK, they already contacted the Secretariat for exchanges and for possible negotiation, and also they show their interest to join the CPTPP, or the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, where 4 ASEAN members are already there, and also potentially also the RCEP agreement once there will be the possibility to unblock negotiation with the ASEAN bloc. So the last point that I would like to make is what does it mean for the trade policy of the EU? Of course, losing one important member with a large economy, and of course, in particular in this part of the world, with historical and economic linkages, put the European Union in a slightly less prominent way. I mean, 2019, the UK trade with ASEAN was around 12–13% of the EU trade with ASEAN, so it's an important chunk. And then if you put also the service part, it probably much higher this share. But still, the EU is a large common market that can offer an access to 500 million consumer with high revenue. So the leverage of the European Union will stay, but probably the fact of having less push from a member like the UK for developing a trade agreement could mean a little bit of slowdown on engaging with new partner. And actually this has been already set up in the new trade policy. It's been launched last month, the trade policy review in Europe, and clearly the emphasis has been moved from engaging in new negotiation more on concluding what we have in ongoing, and implement and enforce the current one. So that's what I see. An important shift will be less engaging in less new negotiation, but more consolidating and implementing what has been negotiated, and make sure that the business can actually benefit from all this agreement. Because once it's signed, the important thing is that the business can actually use it. And what was mentioned at the beginning by the ambassador, the fact that the EU is now taking the UK for not respecting the agreement with the EU is already a sign of the stronger enforcement policy that will be put in place by the European Union. So that's definitely a change, and will have an impact on the future trade policy. Second element of change, which is also in the trade policy review, of course, is a renewed emphasis on WTO, on the multilateral negotiation, with several proposals that the EU put on the table for the reform of the WTO. On that, of course, we are looking for partner, for alliances, and I think the UK could be a good partner in this process, as they also have an interest in the multilateral system. And the third, I conclude with the third element of the trade policy is that the trade policy for the EU will be supportive of the green economic, and in particular the recovery of the economy in a sustainable way after the pandemic. And this is another area where I'm pretty sure that we can work hand to hand with the UK and develop coherent and complementary trade policy.
Thanks, Raffaele. Okay, so thank you very much for your contribution, which is always interesting at a very macroeconomic level. So I will move to Dami Esteriza, as I've been corrected.
Yes, that's right.
Sorry, my
post
is not very good. And so Damire, can you share with us what are your concerns for your company and business as a whole of the Brexit, and how the Brexit could impact your business in this region?
Of course, of course. First of all, hello to you all from Udine, and thank you very much for organizing and setting up this webinar. I think it's very important for us all in this specific moment of change, okay, to gain knowledge. More knowledge we have, more possibilities to succeed with you have. And thank you, of course, for inviting us and for letting us express, as a company that has been operating in these two markets for almost decades, our point of view and our concerns. So the main question is, of course, how Brexit has influenced our business in the UK and, of course, in Singapore area. Well, to be very honest, it's quite difficult for myself and for the company today to be very objective, okay, about the impact that Brexit did have so far, because of course, I mean, if we do not take in consideration, of course, the COVID impact that has had on our lives and our businesses. Okay? specifically, I think that about Brexit, I think that generally speaking, people and we fear changes, right? Because the change usually might bring losses, right? So I think that the question we have to ask ourselves, what is that we fear to lose, and what is that we did think at the time, and in my personal view still is, the uniqueness of the UK business arena. Okay? So if we just go back a year back, okay, what was such a relevant part in making business in UK? We as a company had a very strong access to human capital, right, at reasonable cost. Right? We had very strong access to funds, right, within the same area. We had a direct access to decision makers. Right? All this, of course, based on a very competitive business culture that UK has had over the centuries. Right? So this has made UK London arena a very specific part where to of course not only make business locally but generate business globally. Right? So I think this is going to be a huge challenge in the future. Right? I mean, colleagues that have shared their thoughts earlier, and I thank them for this. But I was also reading over the last couple of days. I mean, and the Italian export to UK has been going between 23 to 25 billions. Okay, over the last 5 to 6 years, of which 1.5 billion belongs to the sector where my company operates. Okay, so as in England they say, short-time pain, long-time gain. I think that we might all struggle now, because I mean, no one. If you ask me personally, if we wanted the Brexit, I don't think anyone would say yes. But I mean, we are where we are, so we have to learn the new rules of the game and be super pragmatical and try to take in a good way advantages out of it. Right? So in my view, the business culture that belongs to UK, the business culture that belongs to Singapore as well, because they're absolutely hyper connected. We will need some time, to understand the proper impact of it, but I am very confident that the markets will become very competitive soon again. Right? So I'm absolutely positive. I'm not negative about it. Of course, as I said earlier, there are some challenges, and they have to be very quickly faced.
Thank you, Damir. But do you think there could be increased competition from UK companies in this region to European companies, given the fact that the UK can negotiate freely from the European Union?
Of course, yes, definitely. But I was having a chat with a couple of good friends of mine based in London over the last couple of days, and all of them they operate in European Union. They do business from London towards European Union, and all of them they've been struggling very much, right? Because in this very first moment, they should have these websites, assistants helping them to make business in the European Union, but it's all very struggling. It's all very slow. Right? So in this very moment, they're struggling, yes. But medium term, I think they will be very competitive again.
Okay,
this is an opportunity for us, guys. I mean, we have to look at it as an opportunity. We can't go back. There is no way to change things that have already happened. So there are the new rules of the game, and it's both sides' interest to be very competitive and be to create this again business culture that works well for both sides. Because I mean, the European Union we need UK as a market, but UK they need not just European Union, but they need all the global markets. So they might have some problems at the beginning. I've heard, a couple of accusations, but medium run, I'm sure that it will go very smoothly.
Thank you. One question for Raffaele, because it's a bit of a curiosity that I have. Do you see UK playing a bit the free rider in this region against the European Union?
You mean in Asia?
Yeah, in Asia, yes.
Of course, there are, of course, their own linkages and their own connection that, by the way, they were already existing before the Brexit. And actually, if I remember my time in Singapore, where I was negotiating for the EU Singapore FTA, UK banks were a little bit playing behind the scene to get different treatment compared to the rest. so there is always this possibility, but as I said, now the UK is in a phase where they have to really reinvent and create their own trade policy with their own priorities and their own objectives. And while I see that certain areas they may have advantage vis-a-vis the rest of the EU in negotiating, for example, I'm thinking that the negotiation that they have with Australia and New Zealand, because they don't have the huge issue of agriculture, to let's say, sensitive issue of agriculture, they may be much faster in concluding before the EU, and therefore have an advantage. In other areas, I think the fact that the EU has a much larger market and provides larger amount of investment will definitely continue to stay, and will give the rest of the EU at least a balance in the relationship with the UK business.
Thanks. Alberto, you have a question for Gabriele. Do you want to go ahead?
Alberto, you're pointing to me, I assume.
Alberto, you. Alberto,
so,
I see your question in the chat. So it's just the question rather than me.
Yeah, Raffaele, ciao. You mentioned the agreement with Japan, the trade agreement with Japan. So could you please elaborate, and especially the very successful one with Korea? Could you maybe elaborate further which sectors were the one who benefited the most from this agreement?
You mean the sector for the European, of course.
Yeah, of course.
our side, not the Japanese.
Yes, please.
The Korean, although they also benefit. But
it's interesting to see both, but especially the Italian.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm more knowledgeable about the Korean one, although it was some time ago. The Japanese one I didn't follow directly. So, but for Korea, definitely one important sector was the automotive sector, and this is actually for both, because as you know, European manufacturers are also based in Korea. So there has been an interesting bilateral flow that increased thanks to the agreement. Another sector, the agri-food sector, that's where the EU got really a big advantage to enter the very protected Korean market, which is similar to the Japanese one from this point of view. So that's another sector that benefited. And then also, of course, the service sector, some business services and legal services. There has been some, although they are still very much protected, in particular in Korea, there is still some opening thanks to the agreement. So allowing some possibility for a European lawyer to operate in Korea. So yeah, it could be the subject of another webinar if you want to explore the success of this agreement. We can do it, but it will take a little bit of time.
Okay, no, 6:30, we are almost done. But I see another question from Alberto that I think is worth asking. He's asking about Singapore that is aiming to become a hub for sustainable finance, and he's also mentioned the investment of Temasek in Leapfrog, whether it's a step in that direction. Gabriele, what do you think about that?
Yes, thank you, Alberto, for the question. And yeah, I think the answer is yes. It's a clear step, and also I think there is a clear alignment between Singapore and UK in this regard, because in the recent budget in both countries, we have seen, I forgot the precise figure, but something nearly 20 billion in Singapore of bonds in green finance, correct? Okay, I forgot the correct figure, but something like that. And around 15 billion in the UK, committed to, in 2021, committed to green bonds. So there is a clear alignment, and the UK is leading this path in, let's say, Europe as a continent, not in the EU. And Singapore, of course, is leader in Southeast Asia. I think probably constituting more than the total of these kind of bonds in all other ASEAN countries. So yeah, so that's a very interesting pattern to follow. And again, financial collaboration between the two countries is probably the hot issue in the coming months. And so I'm not sure if I answered you, Alberto, but this is my point.
No, absolutely. It's the right answer. And by the way, I'm glad that we didn't even touch about the big elephant in the room, Hong Kong, and what's happening to the hedge fund industry. Because if you look to the hedge fund industry, of course, Hong Kong is the bigger one, which is slightly shifting over to Singapore and partially also to Japan. Whereas when we look at the hedge fund industry, it is mainly in Europe, which is what, 500 billion, is mainly London. So that's another topic.
And there is a big move from Hong Kong to the UK due to the
correct.
Issue. So that's something that we are seeing at the moment. So
yeah, you're absolutely right, Alessandro. Many people just assume that it's shifting to Hong Kong. The reality is that there's a diaspora which is bringing some of the managers back to London or to Shanghai domestically or to Japan, and some, of course, to Singapore. Thanks for that.
Okay, so I think
can I say something, Andrea, on picking up what Damir said? I think it's a very important message from an entrepreneur. Things have changed. Don't panic, deal with it, because nothing is more important than deal with it. If you're an entrepreneur, you believe in the market, things have changed in the UK. If you still believe the UK is the right market for your business, go ahead, change maybe some of your business model, the cost will change, but if you really believe in the market, be there and deal with it. So don't panic and deal with it. That's a very important message. And if you believe in something, do it and make the right choices. So thank you, Damir, for
thank you.
So I think we have enough material for another webinar. Unfortunately, I think we need to close because it's we already passed 4 minutes the end of the webinar. So I want to say thank you to Carol, Alberto. Thank you very much for helping us organize this, and thank you very much to Her Excellency Langella for greeting us and giving us his insights. And thank you to Gabriele, Damir, Raffaele, Alessandro. It's always a pleasure to see you, and then I hope to see you in real world soon, and then maybe before that another webinar organized by the Chamber. Thanks so much, and have a good evening in Singapore.
Thank you for having us.
And a good day in Europe and Africa.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Ciao a tutti, grazie. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Don't know how to shut down this computer.
Bye.
This is going to stay recorded.